Welcome to the Can We Talk podcast. I'm joined with Finley and new co-host Joe. This is episode 2 titled Work. Firstly, I want to fully introduce Joe and get to know a bit about him. So Joe, can we get a bit of background about yourself?
Yeah, obviously, so as Cam's just mentioned, my name's Joe. I'm 20 years old from Sunderland. Sort of new to this whole sports journalism type thing, as we all are, learning our ways and things. At the minute, we're all on the foundation pathway, so we're all trying to just sort of find out what we're good at and what we're not good at. But I've got a special interest in football and cricket, so that's something I'd love to explore down the line. Obviously, that's going to be quite tough, but that's probably the main goal.
Cool. So, like I mentioned, this is episode 2, titled Work. So basically, we're going to talk about work experiences, on what we've done so far. Obviously, the process going through, and obviously what we're all working on at the minute. So firstly, I want to talk about obviously interviews that we've done. Firstly, let's talk about the prep. So obviously, Finley, if you've done any interviews, like how do you go about doing the prep?
Well, it's a nerve-wracking thing to do, isn't it? Interviewing, and I think it takes a lot of preparation, not just preparing the things you need, but preparing yourself mentally. I think it's a nerve-wracking thing, but as long as you know what you're doing, and I think if you've got the questions prepared, you've got your equipment, you're making sure you've got a plan. I think it's good that you make sure that your mind's in the correct place to really focus and compose yourself for it. I think obviously researching the person you're interviewing is a vital thing, because you don't want to rock up there and make the person feel like you're talking to a nobody. It's also probably quite rude if you were to rock up to someone you're trying to interview and you just got no clue who that person is.
You're really interested in
it's good to. I mean, that's also part of preparing, I guess, is picking people you're actually interested in. There's no point going to try and interview someone you're not interested in. Maybe if you're working for someone and it's more of a thing you need to do rather than something you're picking. But if you can pick your person you're interviewing, I think it's good that you pick someone that you're interested in, so you really indulging yourself in the interview rather than just interviewing someone for the sake of it.
It's tough as well though, because obviously if you've got an interview planned up, that's fine, you can do your background research sort of thing. But if you're going and doing an interview with someone that, say you've went to a football match, you don't know anything about the player, you know a little bit, it's harder to do that interview. So obviously, Joe, what's your experiences with the prep? And
I think for me the hardest thing is to know who to interview, almost, because I'm sure you're in the same boat. We're all very new at this. It's tricky to sometimes find somebody who has enough experience to sort of share something worthy of a news article. So I think that's almost the most difficult thing. I think in terms of the interviewing, like was mentioned, it's all about the prep really. As long as you've got the questions there and you're prepared to maybe even deviate from your questions if needs be, I think you'll be okay. It's just almost the finding the people you need to interview. I think that's tricky.
So have you've obviously done interviews, yeah? Who have you interviewed, Finley?
Well, I've only interviewed local people, so either family members or even local workers that maybe have their own shops.
Yeah.
But I mean, like Joe said, we're all new to this, so I think it's at the moment it's hard to find people that if people of interest. If you've not got links, I mean, especially as students, you try and contact people and you sort of brushed away because
you hit a bit of a wall, don't you?
It's hard, but I mean that'll come with time. Including this, it's a 4-year course for a reason, so I'm sure the university will help us with links, and in the future we'll have more people of interest.
And Joe, is that the same with you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I find, obviously, as our lecturers have mentioned, sometimes try not to mention the fact you're a student when you're trying to contact people, because often people just think, well, it's not worth me time. But obviously,
impossible.
The only way we can do anything to get experience is by doing it. So it's a bit tricky sometimes to trap the people down and get them to sort of agree to sit down with you. I know I've interviewed a few people within my family who've been involved in sort of sport and things, and I've interviewed a few people. Like one of my close friends is a semi-professional footballer, so it was interesting interviewing those, but they're obviously a lot easier to get a hold of than somebody who's well established.
Yeah, and it's like you say, like it's all about the contacts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely.
But the best thing for it to do is to, when you get them contacts and when you get them interviews, to get their numbers or get their emails and make contact
Yeah,
with them,
definitely.
because you never know what's going to come down. Obviously, the line, like myself, I've done the one with like I mentioned in the last podcast, I've done the one with JJ.
Yeah.
And I kept in touch with JJ over that, and I'm now doing things not related to my course. So I'm doing videography for him, and trying to help him build his social media. But it's like that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah, definitely.
So stemming away a little bit from the interviews, we'll go on to, because obviously sports journalists.
Yep.
We'll go on to match reports. So Finley, I know you done one. Was it last week you done it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah. Preparation is a bit easier for a match report, I think.
Yeah.
You've not got the actual person. You've still got research. You want to make sure you've got facts. You want to make sure that, if you're doing your research, you go to the game and you want to know what could happen.
Yeah.
Are there records to be broken? Are there is someone making their debut? Is it a rivalry you're going to? Is it a title game? Is it a relegation battle? But just in a whole, it's a lot easier to prep for than an interview. You've not got the mental side. You just want to make sure that you go in there with the knowledge. You don't want to go there and just try and make a match report just from watching the game. You want to
have a bit of background about obviously the teams that are playing as well. Joe, is that the same with you?
Yeah, I did the same thing. So when Sunderland played Hull City just a couple of weeks back, I'm a massive Sunderland supporter, so a lot of it came quite naturally because I knew the backgrounds of the players, and I'm quite interested in the Championship as a whole, so I knew a lot of the Hull players and sort of what was on the line going into the game. So I actually found the hardest thing to do with the match report was narrow it down to the amount of words that were needed. I was finding I was going over the words because I had all these details I wanted to throw in, but it was finding what I could put in and what I didn't need to put in, and sort of just using the necessary bits. That was probably the most difficult thing about it.
Aye. And I know we mentioned this last week. I was a Eurovilla supporter and I'm a Newcastle supporter. And Joe, you just mentioned there you're a Sunderland fan. I quite like this podcast because it's quite varied.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
People have different opinions. For me, for match reports, so I done the one. I done the Gateshead semi-final.
Yeah.
Which I found. What I find easier is for games like that, because you're not going to know everyone from the opposition team. Best thing I done was buy a program with everyone's name, everyone's number, and then when you take your notebook or whatever you take to take your notes, best thing to do is to write just then the squad number down to make quick notes.
Yeah.
And then it helps you. Obviously, when you come to type it up later on, I find that much easier to do.
Yep.
But obviously the building of it, it's what I'd done was to get like specifics. So like it went to penalties at the end, so I got what the score was on penalties.
Yeah.
Obviously any yellow cards, any goals, any like big moments, and that you jot down who done what, when, stuff like that. And obviously that's for match reports. With your interviews, have you done any? Is it just written interviews? Or have you done video interviews?
Personally, mine have all just been written at the moment. I think I haven't got the I don't think I've got the necessary equipment and means at the moment to do a well documented video one, which I would want, because when I do it, I'd like it to be of a good quality, and at the minute I just don't have sort of the facilities to do it. So they've all been written at the minute, but I think there can be a benefit to doing it written as well. You can sort of maybe get your point across in a way that at the time you might not have thought of, but I think there's definitely an advantage to doing it videoed, because you get to actually see and hear from the person directly. So I think there's a benefit for both, but I think the video one's probably where the big bucks are made going down the line.
Yeah. definitely same with you.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as Joe. I think, I mean, like you said, you don't want to just do a video interview just for the sake of it being a video. Like you want to,
Yeah.
you don't want to just produce content because you can. You want to produce high quality. You want to make sure it's the best piece of work you can do.
Mhm.
And if you've, like you said, like Joe said, we've not got the equipment, it's just not possible at the moment. So it's something we're working towards, obviously.
Yeah.
But for now, it's written. But I mean, like Joe said, there's many positives to written interviews,
yeah,
just as there is videos.
Massively. So when I've done mine, I've done 2 written, 2 videoed, and all I've done was I used my phone. I've got iPhone 12 Pro Max, so that's all I used. And to be honest, even the camera, obviously you can see in the studio that it's battered in. But I used that, and best thing I'd done was got I went to Mankind.
Oh God!
Right.
What shop?
Class shop. So I went to Mankind in the Metro Centre and picked up. It was called a vlogging kit.
Yeah,
Right.
I think I've seen
Yeah.
the exact thing.
So it comes with you get the tripod with the handle. You get the mic as well. I think it was only 25 quid at the time. So I bought that, and then I bought what else did I buy? And I bought a ring light one as well. In with them, it just honestly the quality isn't high quality, like not 4K out like that, but it's
good enough.
It's decent.
Yeah.
And the mic, when I first bought it, I thought, oh god, this mic's gonna be terrible, and it actually wasn't too bad.
I think that's part of the benefit as well. What we've got here with going to uni, we get access to all this top quality equipment, which
Yeah.
really helps us out and sort of helps us learn more than anything. Because obviously, the studio we're sitting in at the moment, it's very high tech and official.
Yeah, well, I think that's exactly what we were saying in the first episode. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
We're just
Yeah.
very I think we're very lucky with the university we come to. We've got a whole media centre.
Yeah, there's a
Mhm.
real focus on sort of media and
Yeah.
content creation at Sunderland Uni.
There's a whole radio station you can get onto with Spark, and I think we're very lucky, and obviously the links as well. We've got for Sunderland Uni. I mean, you've got Sunderland Football Club. You've got Newcastle.
Not far.
Like a bus ride away,
Yeah.
a metro ride. By the looks of it, I looked into it. That they've got links with like Everton. You've got the Williams Formula One team.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It's
It's a foot in the door,
beneficial,
and it's a foot in the door.
and it's like what we were saying earlier with the links. Obviously, that's a part of the journey. I mean, we've still got 3 more years, and the 3 years we go into are actually pretty much our first years of doing what we want to do, rather than what this foundation years consisted of.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, like obviously the studio that we're sitting in at the minute, I mean, it's not cheap.
No.
No.
Some of the equipment that we're using is not cheap.
Although we come in every time and forget how to use it.
Yeah, totally.
It's a learning curve.
So I think we've actually been in the studio for about, what would you say, half an hour?
Yeah, a lot longer than we've been recording for.
Half an hour, and we've been recording for 13 minutes. So take the time, even though we've used it like a fair few times.
Yeah.
Like
There's so many buttons.
We
you
should
don't know
know
what
by
to
now,
press.
but
it's do you know what it is? It's like a spaceship.
yeah, it's like
It is.
it's like the cockpit of an aeroplane, isn't it? You just don't know
totally.
what. You don't want to press stuff because you just don't know
I feel
what
like
it
you're
does.
gonna press it and it's gonna like blow up or something. You don't want that to happen.
So like I say, is that was the obviously we've done the interviews, the match reports, the videoing. When you're conducting them, so when you come to actually sitting in the seat, and I know we've talked about a bit about the prep and what you do, but what's the kind of things you look for? Like I've obviously mentioned the things I look for. Like what are the sort of things you look for?
I mean, personally for me, I just wanted to find you want to draw out something interesting. Like, I know that sounds very obvious, but you could do an interview and ask the most basic of questions, and you get nothing from it, and nobody's really interested. But if you can just find that little question that might open a person, or if you're watching a match, if you can make an observation that someone else hasn't saw, it makes what you're offering so much more than what the next person's offering, and it sets you up much better for the long run if you can spot those little details or get that extra information out of whoever you're interviewing.
Mm.
Well, yeah, but what like Joe was saying, it's like you want to find that unique aspect from someone in an interview. If you can, I mean, you want to look at the person you're interviewing and how, like, in the past, how many times has that same person answered the same questions you might go and ask them.
Yeah.
You want to sit down and think, what unique questions have I got that could really bring out a unique answer? What can you draw
Mm-hmm.
to make your piece of work different to what's already out there?
Sort of thing, yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, from the ones I've done, the 2 video interviews that I've done were about the 2 players' careers,
Mm.
and sort of like what they're doing now. It wasn't sort of like, I know people say like you need an angle and you need a vision to go in, and this is what you want to talk about mainly. But for me, it was more of promoting my work, but also promoting theirs to sort of give them a hand as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, a lot of the time, you go into an interview not knowing what you particularly want to get out of it, and
Yeah.
you'll sort of figure it out as you go. What you can achieve from the interview.
Mm-hmm.
It was like what you said in the last episode about when you do interviews, you tend to sit down, press record, but don't let them know it's recording. Obviously, they know they're going to be recorded.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
but as in, like, you set up all your stuff, but you don't go straight into interview, and you set up a conversation. You get into a fluid, like, how was your week, and you ask questions and build up
Mm-hmm.
to your actual questions for the interview.
Yeah.
And so you make that person comfortable. You sort of build a conversation so the interview doesn't feel like an interview. It doesn't put pressure on the
Yeah.
person you're interviewing. You don't make them feel nervous or uncomfortable. You just sort of break freely and like fast and flowing into the interview and the important questions you want to ask.
It's all for making them comfortable, but it's also like making yourself comfortable. Like,
Yeah.
I know every time I do an interview, like even the podcast that we do now, like I sit and I'm like, before I press record, I'm like, oh no, did we mess up on this? Did we mess up
Yeah.
on that? And like I was saying this before, like when I come in, like I'm just, there's many times that I've came in, press record, and then I had to like delete everything that I've done. But it's like making yourself comfortable. So I don't know if you know, Joe, but what I do basically is I go in, I set everything up, and then first thing I do is just go, right, start with your name, your age, how long you played football for, like if it's a footballer, how long you been doing your thing for, and like sort of try and build that conversation.
Yeah, definitely. I think if you're at ease, for one, you're going to ask better questions. It's going to be a better interview. But if you make the other person at ease, they're more likely to tell you things that are more interesting because you've made them feel comfortable.
They open up more.
Yeah, definitely.
And you compose yourself so you don't lose your questions in your head.
Aye.
If you're nervous or you feel uncomfortable yourself, your questions in your head might just drift out, and you might start to like crack up and just start asking the easy questions that everyone's asked.
Every journalist has.
Instead, you forget your questions, you forget your story,
Yeah.
and you come out with a story that's been published
Mhm.
many, many times before.
So obviously, last week we talked about brands as well.
Yeah.
So obviously myself and Finley, Joe, like the stuff that you're doing at the moment, are you putting it out? Or is it just-
Not at the moment. That's definitely the plan. I think what I would quite like to do, I was thinking about, obviously you get these sort of forms of media like, you know, like 442 and
Yeah.
Mundial. I think I'd quite like to do something like that where I set up sort of a specific branded content page, so maybe tailored towards football,
Mm-hmm.
and just a place to sort of put your work. I think that's something I'm going to try and work on because a lot of my content is around football anyway.
Yeah.
So there may as well be somewhere I can show for it, and then obviously later down the line it could turn into something a bit more serious, or it could just be something I can show potential employers, look, this is what I've done. So I think that's what my plan is at the moment, sort of just making probably a football-based sort of platform.
Mm. And like I think, like we said last week, it's like when you put your media out and when you're putting your stuff out, it's building yourself a portfolio.
Yeah.
Like not just your brand. Like if you make, say for example, you made yours. You mentioned 442 and that. if you brought something out like that, it's not just building that brand, it's building yours.
Yeah, definitely.
So like you say, like future employers and stuff like that, it's starting early is probably the best thing, because then you start and you can show them where you came from and what your latest bit of work is. Do you know what I mean?
I think as well it shows that you're committed, and especially if you do it over a long period of time, and you look out and put this amount of work in over this amount of years, and I could do that for you. You could tell that to an employer, and I mean, it's just like you say, it's just something to show for what you've been doing, and it would almost show progress. I bet if you look back at your first piece of work to your last piece of work, there's so much change and progress, and it's almost nice to look back and see how far you have come.
Mm.
Well, it's like when you graduate, you'll go to an employer, and not only will you have your degree for graduating, you'll have 3-4 years of work as well,
hard, solid work as
experience.
well, yeah.
And so, I mean, I know it's not in the newsroom and it's not day in day out, but it's something. It's a degree from uni, and it's 3 or 4 years of.
Yeah, it shows that you're serious as well, and that you're really
yeah.
passionate about what you're doing.
And I think especially like if you're going out looking for the interviews and you're going out and doing the match reports and stuff like that, obviously you're paying the ticket.
Yeah.
So it shows that you're totally committed to it.
Yeah,
you know what I
100%.
mean?
Yeah, that's good.
So obviously we've mentioned all that. What I'd like to talk about is obviously we done ours last week. For basically both years, is anything new for anyone to look forward to? Like any work going out? Anything you've done the last week or what you've done recently?
I mean,
I think May is definitely going to be a big one for me.
Yeah.
Like FH7, obviously with all the assignments we've got, as soon as I've got them all checked and you know, like proofread, and you know, as soon as I know that they're in the pristine condition I want them to be,
Mm-hmm.
May, I think it's going to be a busy month. Sorry, of a lot of content's going to come out. I think May.
a lot of assignments during May as well, so
Yeah, well, yeah.
be very busy.
But
Yeah, I think for me, like I said, I'm going to try and sort of centre a lot of my work around football, and which is the perfect time. The football's getting to the head of the season where everything's coming to a close. Obviously, you've got the title race. It's looking like it's going to be Man City. You've got the upper hand at the moment, but
Sunderland
we don't know
get
who's going
promoted.
to win it. For me, the most important thing, Sunderland are on a good run at the moment. We're in playoff contention. So there's so much going on. I think that it's almost a perfect time. At the beginning of the season, you can talk all you want, but at the end of the day, you're just making a prediction.
yeah,
where
it's just
now
so long, isn't it?
where
when
now
it's at the start of the season.
we've got a baseline of where people are, you know, sort of what could happen. And I was saying earlier outside of the podcast, obviously this is straying away from it a little bit, but we're all in a unique position where relatively, unlike normal, all our teams are doing pretty well at the
Yeah.
moment. So it's quite a positive sort of time where I know for Sunderland and Newcastle in particular, obviously Villa had their struggles a few years ago. It's been a bit doom and gloom recently, so it feels nice that there's some positive things to report on.
15 years of doom and gloom for me. Like.
Yeah, and you've got Middlesbrough.
Yeah,
Middlesbrough,
Middlesbrough.
The
The northeast flying at the
yeah,
moment.
it is.
It is,
to be
aye.
fair.
So basically, like, can you give a bit of insight on what you're gonna do, mate? Do you not know yet?
Well, I know it's gonna be a lot of. Well,
Ooh, that's a stump question, isn't it?
there's just gonna be a lot. It's
Yeah.
gonna be a lot of content to come. I've started up my YouTube channel.
Yes, he's done it.
Yeah, it's obviously nothing's on it, and you know it needs to be designed and stuff, but it's there.
It's a foot in the door.
Yeah, it's been made, and it's an incentive for me to, you know, it's an incentive to see it, and if nothing's on it, it feels crap for me. So my incentive is to get stuff on it, to get stuff done.
Being proactive.
So yeah, camera equipment is on the way.
Ordered.
And, yeah.
Mint.
So yeah, so a lot of
Very positive.
more videos, less writing, but keep writing as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. You gotta
'Cause
keep that up. Do you know what it is? I like hearing stuff like that, like saying that, or my YouTube's made, or I've ordered this, because it just makes like. So obviously I started mine up, and I've now bought my own podcast stuff. So obviously I don't. Obviously we
Yeah.
keep doing the one in the studio, but outside obviously interviews and stuff like that, it's going to be a better quality.
Yeah.
But I think hearing stuff like that, it's just like, oh, get in, someone else is doing it.
Yeah.
You know, I've got a friend.
Yeah, it's scary. It's YouTube and it's showing your face. You don't necessarily have to, but I think for my content, I'm gonna.
Yeah.
I think because I want to do a lot of match day vlogs. I think, obviously, with the summer coming up, we're not going to get much, but even if it's just sort of, I want to do stadium tours, and I want to try and get as much. I just want to learn a lot this summer for September coming.
I think you're in a unique position as well there. You live here in the northeast, but
Yeah.
you support Aston Villa, so there's so much for you to sort of, like, you've got such a big sample size. You've
Yeah.
seen football in the Midlands and you've seen football in the northeast. It's so sort of, you've got such a bigger sample size, it almost opens up more doors for you.
Yeah.
It's like there's so much that you can do.
Well, for Villa, you've got, in Birmingham, its own, you've got Aston Villa, West Brom, Wolves,
Yeah.
Birmingham City,
Even the likes of Coventry, not far away. things like
Coventry,
that.
Leicester. You've got all those clubs around, and then London's like a couple hours on the
Yeah.
train.
Well, up here we're a little bit more isolated in
Yeah,
terms
a
of
little bit.
professional clubs. There's Sunderland, Newcastle, Middlesbrough. The
Yeah.
Gateshead, like just below that level.
They don't do stadium tours, though.
They don't do stadium tour.
Do they not?
Gateshead.
Riverside.
No, Gated.
Oh,
don't
right.
do the
I
national
thought you
stadium.
said Middlesbrough.
Middlesbrough probably will.
Middlesbrough will. I went on one the other day. So obviously, if anyone listening and haven't done it, I would highly recommend doing the St James's tour. Basically, I've spent the last 3 days at St James's.
Jeez.
I was there on Sunday. I done the stadium tour on Monday, and then I watched Blythe v Morpeth last night at St James's. So I've literally had 3 days there. But I put the stadium tour on Monday morning. Went on Monday. And do you know what it is? You learn a lot more. And it's interesting for obviously us because we're sports journalism students. But what I sort of knew but like didn't realise until I actually got there, the massive difference is. So have you been to St James's?
Yeah.
Just as an away fan.
Oh, it's a bit different for you and the gods, isn't it? So when you're standing where the dugouts are, okay, and you look to the far side, you can see that the hill, like the pitch, is on a hill.
Mm.
I saw Ben Foster mention this in his podcast
Yeah.
recently.
So it's on a hill, and when I was speaking to the woman that was doing the tour, she says, basically the way the pitch is, obviously there's like a 3-foot slope in the pitch. FA ruling is a 4-foot slope.
Jeez.
And the reason why it hasn't been changed yet is because of obviously everything that's underneath.
Mm.
Now, obviously, at the end of the season, they always rip the pitch up and start over again fresh. But underneath the pitch, obviously, you've got the underground heating.
Mm.
So they didn't want to rip all that up and try and change it. But it's been like that for years.
Yeah, I saw Ben Foster talk about it, and he actually made a similar point. He said, obviously, you don't realise, unless you're at pitch level,
Yeah.
how big, like how drastic the slope actually is. He's saying it's like it's quite a drastic thing to play against. But yeah, I suppose it's one of those things that gives the stadium an extra bit of like
Uniqueness.
uniqueness and a bit more intimidation when teams go there.
So newer stadiums, they're more flat.
Yeah.
But because St James's is such an old stadium, they haven't changed it.
Mm.
And the only reason I noticed was because when you stand at the dugout and you look at the advertising boards going, like, you've got the electronic advertising boards, but then you've got like the club's advertisement little boards. The poles that they're on, you can see the advertising board on that side,
Yeah.
and you can it on there.
Oh fuck.
So you notice the difference, and you're like, what? But no, I would highly recommend that because obviously you get to see the executive boxes, you get to see the director's box, both changing rooms.
Yep.
And what I didn't realise as well is that obviously Newcastle's home changing room is pristine. But with different clubs, so for Wolves, for example, they have their colours in the away change room
Wow.
to, like, obviously
Yeah.
get the teams.
I know Sunderland's changing rooms, the home, they've got it done out like obviously really nice. It's all red and white and things, and then the away, it's very basic, just changing rooms.
Yeah.
And there's actually, I don't know if it's still there, but I remember I did a tour a few years ago, and the clock in the away room was smashed, and it was off Alex Ferguson. He'd kicked off at something and flung a boot at the clock on the wall and broke it.
Would it not have been the one where Man City won the league?
It might have been. It might have been that day, yeah.
When
And he threw someone's boot and it hit the clock and broke it. And the club thought, well, that's just a nice thing to keep there.
Bit
So
of
they
memorabilia,
kept the
that
broken clock there.
Alex
Pretty
Ferguson
cool.
broke the clock.
Yeah.
When she mentioned it, she was saying that Southampton's. She says she doesn't know if it's still the same, but it used to be when the player in the toilet for the away dressing room, when the players go to the toilet, when they sit down, there's a mirror, right? Hear us out. This is mental when you told us.
What?
There's a mirror, right? And on the mirror is a Southampton top.
What?
So when they sit down on the toilet, they're
Oh
wearing the
my
Southampton top.
What?
Honestly, she was telling me, and I was like, mental.
Well, it hasn't worked too well for them this season. Then.
No, not really.
In the past, it might have done its trick.
So obviously we've talked about the match reports, interviews, videos, and we've covered that. Obviously we are sports journalists, so let's get on to the topic of football.
Yeah, I think so. If you're watching this and you don't like football, and
This would be 31 minutes and 30 seconds is probably where you want to cut off.
Yep. Well,
I want to. The only reason I mentioned it is because of Sunday.
It was a good day on Sunday. Sunderland won, and then I was hoping Newcastle might maybe drop points. However, Spurs decided to be horrendous.
Spurs decided not to turn up and just sit on the
Yeah.
bench.
I think that pretty much confirms top four for you guys
Yeah,
personally. I think
Champions League.
I can't see anyone catching you.
So we have Everton. Obviously, this is being recorded on the Wednesday, so we've got Everton tomorrow. So when this goes out on Friday, we will know the result. And then
4-0
Sunday,
Everton.
we'll have Southampton. Do you know what it is? It wouldn't surprise us after the result that we had against Hughes.
It'll be a tough place to go
Probably.
under the lights at Goodison. Not be easy.
It's never easy.
No.
Never easy goods. And do I recall last time you played at Everton there was like some controversy or something? Was it last season when?
It was when the guy who was the Just Stop Oil protester
Yeah,
went
was
on,
that-
didn't he?
was
I
that
don't-
you lot?
Yeah, that was us. I don't think it was. Might have been last season.
Was it last or last season?
See, the thing
before?
is, you can never tell because we always play Everton midweek under
I was
the
just going to
lights.
say that. It always seems like he's never at Goodison
Always
Saturday.
midweek. Like, I think last season, we might have played them home and away. Actually, no, maybe last season, home and away, both midweeks under
Yeah.
the lights.
Hmm.
It was mental. Yeah, that was against us. I think there was about 7 minutes added on for that.
The
Yeah.
best thing about that is the guy who tried to get him off,
The
and he got the
massive
massive
pliers.
pliers in his face when he was trying to cut it. Unbelievable. Did you see the one at the snooker?
Yeah, I
the
was
other
just
week?
gonna say that.
Yeah.
I could not believe that.
Got on the table with that
I see.
orange dust or whatever he had. Crazy.
That'd been a nightmare to clean.
I did it.
They had the vacuums.
Yeah.
Didn't they?
There was a second that tried, but they just caught
The
Yeah.
quarter.
person, didn't they?
It was actually the referee.
Yeah, yeah.
Quarter.
Pay rise
probably,
for him.
probably wasn't in the job description.
Definitely not.
Tackle anyone that gets to the table. So obviously Villa over the weekend.
Yep.
Flying.
It was tough against Fulham though. We did not play our best, but look, I mean, it's those fixtures though, isn't it? When you can get 3 points, even though you're playing badly,
Mm-hmm.
and that shows that you're starting to really get somewhere.
No disrespect to Fulham, like, but
No, definitely not.
I mean,
Fulham are top 10,
Yeah,
so
top 10
they're
Premier League side.
good
Anytime you beat anybody in the Premier League, it's a good result because
Yeah.
it's so tough. But
I mean, Marcus Silva's done wonders
He's
with
done a
them, with
brilliant job.
Mitrovic being out
no.
injured. But I mean, yeah, Unai Emery. I mean, he took over. I mean, last time we played Fulham this season, Gerrard was sacked, and now we've played Fulham again under Unai Emery, and we're 20 games with a goal in each.
It is a
from-
weird season, though, isn't it?
very
It is
strange.
very-
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you look at the teams like Chelsea. What's going on with
Yeah,
Chelsea? It's
Liverpool as well,
bizarre,
fighting for Europa
yeah.
League. I don't think they're getting top 4, but I
They
do
were
see
going for a
Liverpool getting
quadruple
fifth.
last year.
but
Yeah.
even where Brighton is,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Brighton's like
Brentford.
in Brentford, they're just
Look at
right
so
on. Like,
strange.
I mean, and then look at the relegation zone. You got Southampton, Everton, Nottingham Forest,
I know.
Leeds,
Yeah.
Leicester.
It's so tight as well who could go down. I mean, I think Southampton obviously at the minute sit bottom, but they almost got an unbelievable victory last week at Arsenal.
Yeah.
Obviously in the end it was 3-3, but I mean, all of a sudden they're showing a little bit of fight, and you look at Forest, they seem to not be able to win away from home, and Everton a hit and miss. You couldn't predict it.
Well, we're sat 5th,
Yeah.
but we've got some tough fixtures coming up. I mean,
Dude.
we've got Man United, Wolves, which is a rivalry, and it's at Molineux.
Oof.
And then we've got Spurs, Liverpool, Brighton, which are the 3 teams we're sort of fighting with.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
I think even though we're sat 5th at the moment, obviously we need Man United to do us a favour against Spurs tomorrow.
Yeah. Which
Um,
wouldn't help us, so please don't.
Hey, you're alright. You're fine. But, yeah. We're sat 5th, and, you know, it's good, but I think the lowest we could finish is 8th, which would just be outside of any Europe, which,
Mhm.
you know, it would sting. It would sting that we'd just missed out, but from where we were with Gerrard, I mean, 16th to 8th, I'll
Yeah.
take it.
I think regardless of how the season
Yeah.
ends, you've got to say Unai Emery has done an absolutely unbelievable
Yeah,
job.
Definitely. And where was I? I was talking about Europe, wasn't I?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think the lowest is definitely 8th, but I think I've got a weird feeling either 6th or 7th. I would like to say 6th because I think we'll finish above Tottenham and Brighton.
Mhm.
I think Liverpool will get 5th. I think they will get the Europa League.
Mhm.
Ma-
Gotta be a lot of fight in that, then.
Yeah, but I think Klopp has got them fighting again. I think the form is. I mean, even though, like you said earlier off podcast, when what was it? They played Forest.
Forest, yeah.
They conceded some sloppy goals, but I think they've still got the fight
Yeah,
in them. I think
on the whole they have picked up definitely.
yeah, I think they have enough to get the 5th. Maybe not. I don't think Champions League anymore, especially with your win over Tottenham at the weekend. I think
Yeah.
you've
I think
solidified that.
that was a massive one, I think, for Newcastle. I think with Liverpool playing on the Saturday and then Newcastle playing Tottenham on the Sunday, if Newcastle had have dropped points, particularly if they got beat, Liverpool would have been licking their lips a little bit, I think, thinking they could catch us.
Yeah.
But that win, I think, almost solidifies it for us.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 7 games left this season.
Yeah, we've
Obviously,
got
when this goes out, we'll have 6 left.
Yeah.
But we still have the likes of Arsenal. We've got Chelsea last game of the season. We've got Leicester, who's sitting bottom obviously at the minute. Leeds. We've got Everton and Southampton. Obviously, I've mixed that order up massively, but they're the sort of teams we've got. I think Brighton won't be an easy game.
No.
Definitely not.
Arsenal won't be an easy game, and I think Chelsea last game of the season. I don't think that'll be an easy game.
You just don't know what Chelsea you're going to get. If everyone shows up for Chelsea, it'll be a really, really difficult game, but you just don't know with Chelsea.
It's trying to get them out to sort of gel together, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's got
Because
that many new players.
they've just tried to change the
And
whole
that-
team.
They've had how many new players and 3 managers this season now as well.
Yeah,
That's like-
unbelievable.
I mean, Potter for Lampard. What a weird decision. What?
And I
that
think as
decision
well,
was
if you were
just
going to get
so
Graham Potter,
strange.
you had to stick by him.
Yeah,
you
had
couldn't.
to.
Surely the whole point of appointing someone like Graham Potter is a long-term thing where you think eventually he's going to be a big success.
Yeah.
To sack him, whether or not you think he deserved to be sacked, but to sack him straight away after what was it, 4 months in charge?
Something like that.
I think it's ridiculous. I think the owner, he's got a bit of a warped reality, I think, on what football is.
Yeah, I mean, and now it's Poch. Close.
Yeah.
There was
Aye,
a notification there
Fabrizio
before starting.
Fabrizio Romano put it out yesterday that apparently they're close to accepting terms, and it's pretty much like
So,
foot through the door, basically.
That's a weird one in my opinion.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
a very
it's-
interesting one.
Is
But-
that not to get in the mind of Tottenham though?
Well, you got Spurs to a Champions League final.
Yeah, but I think the
But-
big thing that gets thrown at Pochettino is however good the football is he played, he never won a trophy.
No, I don't know.
And
But
Chelsea's thing is they need to win trophies.
and he
That's
didn't do
the
very
whole
well
thing
at
Chelsea.
PSG, did he?
He didn't. And PSG
And
had a lot of sort of big characters
have
similar to
firepower.
what Chelsea have got.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, to be honest, I think anyone that walks into that Chelsea job has got a job on their hands. I mean, it was never going to be easy for Lampard to come back for the rest of the
No,
rest
not
of the
at all.
season. I think we can criticise him as much as we want, but I think he's been thrown into the deep end with that one.
I think for Frank Lampard, though, it's a bit of a free hit. Like, if he comes in and he doesn't do really well, he'll say, well, neither did Tuchel and neither
Yeah.
did Potter. If he does really well, he puts himself in the shop window for another club to come in. Or if he did really well, and I know they've been knocked out now, but let's just say hypothetically he won the Champions League,
Yeah.
they'd have been in a position where
I
they
mean,
probably
Lampard
had to
would
give
have-
him the job.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
would have had to, wouldn't
So
they?
it was a bit of a free hit for Lampard, but I just think it was just such a strange decision to sack Potter and to get Lampard in till the end of the season. I just don't quite understand the thought process.
It's a weird one. So obviously we've talked about the structure's been quite well for this podcast, I think. So
Yeah.
obviously we've had interviews, match reports, talked a bit about football. Obviously Finley, you mentioned you've got stuff coming up in May with obviously the assignments and the stuff that you're going to be putting out.
Yep.
Joe, is anything else from you for honestly anything new going on?
Not particularly. I'm very excited for the summer because the Ashes is starting England v Australia.
Mint.
So I'm very, very excited for that. Hopefully England can get a victory, regain the Ashes. Like I said, the football's coming to the very exciting part of the season where anything can happen. So I think in terms of content-wise, that's a lot of what I'm going to be focusing on. The end of the season, the run-in, and then going into summer, the English cricket summer, particularly the Ashes. I think that'll be a great thing to focus on. Hopefully England can get the job done.
It's one sport that I've never got into.
You know what? It isn't entertaining, but it's just. I think I mean, did you get into cricket through a parent? Or was
Sort
it
of my
more
whole
of a-
family's sort of quite interested, like the male side of the family's interested in cricket. But when I was sort of a kid, I enjoyed the cricket, but I didn't love watching a test match or whatever.
Yeah.
But then as I've getting, let's say from about the age of 13 or 14, it's just addictive. A bit like
Yeah.
the whole test match, 5 days of like, you don't know which way it's going to go. Obviously you have lulls in it where it's not as exciting, but the overall, I think if you got into cricket, it's an addictive sport.
I think
addictive.
it's definitely a sport you need to play to be able to enjoy watching.
Aye.
I think with obviously, I mean, Formula One, you can't do it
You can't
to
really play
enjoy-
Formula One.
Yeah, you can't.
Saying that, there is a racetrack.
And you can get simulators.
You can get
So
simulators.
I suppose
mean,
go-karting's the
go-karting,
closest thing,
yeah.
really.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we can do.
but I mean, from a young age, you can't really So football,
No.
you can kick a ball around when you're
yeah.
a toddler.
yeah.
and- but Formula One, I think it's
Cricket, you can get balls pelted at you, so you know.
Yeah,
it's-
no.
yeah. I mean, cricket is definitely a sport. I think it helps if you've played it. I think
yeah.
it's. I mean, for me, I like cricket so much because from a young age, my dad, whenever I used to go see my dad, every time he'd get his cricket set out, we'd have a game of cricket, and it'd be really fun. And now, when I go see him, it's like, let's stick the telly on. Obviously, my dad's getting a bit older now, so
Mhm.
he can't take a cricket ball to the shin, to the
Oof.
knees as many times as he could before. So
Yeah.
instead of playing it, we'd sit
Yeah,
down
sit
and
down,
watch the cricket. I just remember watching that Ben Stokes performance.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, there's been so many now.
Yeah.
With Ben Stokes' performance, he's
So-
just unbelievable.
I literally worked in a cricket club and I still don't really know the sport.
It is weird. Rugby is like that for me. I can't.
Yeah,
can't
I've
get
never
on
been
board
able
with
to get
that.
into rugby.
My
Um,
family is massive on rugby, but I just can't.
Yeah.
Mine's just football and darts.
Darts is a good one. I think I was talking about this with some of my friends the other day. I was saying darts, if you could be a professional darts player, that's a canny life to have. Just
Oh,
go up,
mate.
have a few
Imagine.
darts. You go up there and you have a bit of
It's-
sing-song and that when you do
but
well.
It's just weird that
It's a
the
change now, though.
professionals.
It's like all changed now. So when I first not when I first got into darts, but when I was first introduced to darts, you would see people who had massive beer guts and they'd be
Yeah.
they'd be
Drink
drinking
pints on
and
stage
drink
and
pints
that.
throwing and that. Whereas now it's all when you look at the likes of Gerwyn Price and Dimitri Van den Berg and stuff like that, who aren't fat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They are quite they're either slim or they're quite built.
But you get some real characters in darts as well. You look Gerwyn Price the way he goes on with the crowd, and
I
Peter
mean-
Wright with
I
his
mean,
multicoloured hair. and all
Even just the crowd itself. I mean,
Yeah, it's a day
just
out, isn't it?
what an atmosphere that is to go into a darts.
So I started.
I've never been myself, but I mean,
No.
I've watched it on telly loads,
Yeah.
and it looks incredible. I mean, the fancy dress I see sometimes, and the stuff they put on their cards and stuff
Yeah.
is just
Do you
incredible.
know what it is? I started playing darts about just over a year ago, and now I'm playing like at a decent level. So I play youth county darts. I play in the Tyne Wear Super League, which is like basically a filter for your senior county.
Mm-hmm.
But like I've done that before. Like I play on a Monday night. At the place where I used to work, I play there, and I went in with Peter Wright Mohawk on. I had me John my bottoms on and a top, and I went in. I thought I was class, but do you know what it is? You can go and play football, right? And you play against different teams, and you'll never speak to a player from that team again. Darts, you play someone, next time you see them, you have a full blown conversation with them. It's one of the weirdest sports for like the contact that you have between people. Like I've met so many people over the past year and a half that, like my best mate, like I met him a year ago.
Yeah.
And we're like inseparable now. So it's just them kind of things where you meet new people and you meet your new friends and stuff like that, and you get to know people well.
So do you think darts is something you could like take forward to a high level? Do you think? Sounds like you're playing at obviously a good level now.
I'm all right. I've played youth county 3 times, and I haven't lost.
Yeah, it's good going
on a stage in front of maybe 100 people.
Very good going.
So, but
Jeez.
it's different because obviously youth county is like from under 21s and below,
Mm.
whereas your senior county, that's when you start getting your players, and that's when you get you can tell the
experience.
difference. Yeah, like there's 2 lads that play youth county with me, and they're now playing for the senior because of how good they are.
I suppose as well
Jeez.
with darts, it's like you could get someone who's been playing it for like 20 years, like as long as you've been alive, because it's not like football or another sport where you get to a certain age and you might pack it in. You can probably go as long as you fancy really with darts.
There was one lad that I know. So I played darts 4 times a week, with different teams and stuff like that. And most of the teams that I've played for, they say, "Oh, we've been playing for 40 years."
Yeah.
And I'm like, bloody hell. But there's a lad I know who started this beginning of last season of the league I play in on a Monday. He was there for I think 3 or 4 weeks and got dartitis.
Dartitis?
Dartitis?
Yeah, do you not know what dartitis is? No, it's a genuine thing.
Is it?
So when you play darts, obviously it's all in the elbow and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But people can develop dartitis. That's what it's
Is
called.
that the actual medical name?
Well, I don't think it's a medical name, but it's a name. And basically with dartitis, you throw it's when people think too much about the throw and the arm starts jolting. So like you throw, so obviously your throw's meant to be nice and smooth, but their throw's so staggered because they keep hold of the door for too long. They can't release their fingers too quick, so that's like dartitis.
I've never heard of
Wow.
that.
There was a lad.
I've never heard
Yeah,
that.
there was a lad who played for 4 weeks and got dartitis, whereas
Well, like 4
people-
weeks straight?
no, every Monday for 4 weeks.
Right.
So he probably played about 4 hours of darts and got dartitis. It's just
Well,
mental.
there's
What
lads
the
who've
hell?
like played for like
But then
40 years.
there's blokes that's played for like 40 years and
Yeah.
they can still throw like 20-80s like that. And you're like, what? It's just so mental. So obviously we talked about the stuff that's coming up for both of you. Just a bit about the Cam Houghton media side. We've got this podcast that we do.
Yeah.
We also have the Have a Listen podcast, which is the music podcast that I do. That music production, I think when I mentioned to Finley in the last episode that I wanted to create this umbrella.
Yeah.
And that's now pretty much secured. The music production side is up and running. The obviously the podcasts are all up. The interviews and the match reports are all up. The photography side will be getting put onto the website in about 2 weeks, I believe. And then in maybe a month's time, the film production will be coming up as well, the video production. So as I've mentioned before, like the whole reason for creating it when I first started was just to be an outlet for my work. Like Joe, like you were saying with yours, if you want to create one, like that's what yours is going to be about. That was mine. But obviously since getting more into it, it's expanded and become all these things, and I think it's probably where I need to be most to get the most out. it's now became a part where it's not just for my work to go out, but it's for other people's. So obviously we're doing this podcast, so it's boosting you as well, and then for my mate who I do the music production with, it's boosting him as well. So it's not all just about me. Do you know what I mean? It's like I want to help people out and like, look, put your stuff on here, and then it goes out. If you haven't got a website, you haven't got any social media, pop your stuff on here, and we'll get it out.
Yeah.
And obviously promoting everyone. But obviously with the FH7 Media, with you getting your camera equipment,
Oh, God.
you know, that's your stuff will obviously become of a better quality, and you'll have a decent setup. But is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, not really.
No,
I've thoroughly enjoyed my podcast debut.
Mint.
Yeah, I think that's everything covered, isn't it?
Yeah. So obviously, if you listen on Spotify, please follow. If you listen on the YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe, and follow the social medias. I'll pop Joe's in the description, and as usual, I'll pop Finley's in the description. But thank you very much for listening.